Good morning, YouTube. This is Finn from Team Gins here. I've got a slight update on my Fabled deck that I've been running. I still love Fabled. I think they're still a very fun deck to play. There's so many different combos that you can pull off in this deck. So without further ado, here we go. Um, two Fabled Cerberus. I like it perfectly fine at 2. A lot of people run 3, but I think I have, you have more than enough tuners in the deck. You have more than enough things to discard special summon monsters, so I think 2 Cerberus is just perfectly fine. Um, I have here 2 Fabled Ganashia. 2 is perfectly fine as well. He's the beater of the Fableds. I still run the one Nozuchi. I think Nozuchi is awesome. His effect is a little sporadic, and it doesn't happen that often, but, when it does go off, you can get basically a +2 off Nozuchi. You get 2 special summons with him, so Nozuchi is definitely worth it at 1, I think. I have here 3 Fabled Chawa. Chawa is basically the main discard engine of the deck. The thing is crazy. You can do so many little. I have so many little combos with Chawa. Either you could discard Ganashi and special summon Ganashi and bring out Chawa and go straight into Ragan, or discard Lurry and go into Formula Synchron. You can do so much with Chawa. Next up, 1 Fabled Raven. I still like Fabled Raven at 1. For the longest time I was trying to fit in the second one. I was running 2, but to be honest, I just only like Raven at 1, really. He's great if you open up with Raven. If you open up with Raven in your first hand, you can go second. You can do crazy things. You can go off and get so many pluses and special summons with him. But the only bad thing is if you draw him mid-game, you're kind of screwed. Next up, run 3 Fabled Grimro. She's one of my favorite searchers in the game. All you need to do is have Fabled on the field, and you can pitch her and search for any Fabled monster that's, what is it, level 4 or lower? Yeah? Yeah. That's crazy. Fabled Grimro, and not to mention she's a 1700 beater, so, I've done direct attacks with her for damage as well. Not to mention, I occasionally exceed with her, and like an opponent's monster that I've taken with mind control or something along those lines. Next up, 2 Fabled Crusts. I only like her at 2, really. It's basically self-explanatory. Discarding a special summon from your graveyard. Basically an extra monster reborn. 2 Fabled Lurry. I love the Fabled Lurry. You can discard him to special summon him, and when he gets discarded, he's special summoned. As I said, you can go into Formula Synchron with him and Chawa, but you can do just so much more with him. Just if you need that, or if you can go from a 5 to a 6, you can do a whole lot of different stuff with Lurry. And finally, for the Fabled lineup, 1 Fabled Kushano. I, for the longest time, was running 2, but to be perfectly honest, I only really like it at 1 now. Okay. Next up, we have just a couple of tech cards that I tech in here quickly. The Tricky. I think the Tricky is awesome in this deck. One thing that the Fableds do not have is a big, real strong beater. I mean, they have Ganashia, but he gets removed from play after he's discarded and special summoned that way, and he only has 1800, so the Tricky really comes in handy. Plus, you get that discard, and you can special summon something most likely. So that's why I like having the Tricky in here. 1 Morphing Jar, basically self-explanatory. Snipe Hunter, I love this guy too. I was running 1 for the majority of the time that I was playing this deck, but now I'm running a second one, and it's so good in this deck. It's so good. Not only, even if you don't get the destruction, you get the discard, so it's fantastic in that respect. And finally, for the monsters, we got 1 Sangan. Sangan basically searches out 75–80% of the deck. Basically everything except Grimro and Ganashia, so why not? Now finally onto the magics. Spell cards, excuse me, I'm doing that. I did that in my last video too. Okay, so as for the spell cards, we got 2 Dark World Dealings, self-explanatory. Mind Control is ridiculous in this deck. You're going to be sinking is almost constantly in this deck. You have so many tuners in your deck, so mind control is just it's so good in this deck. One for one, there's so many different good combos that you can pull off with this in the deck. You could um, use one for one, discard Ganashia, special summon Ganashia, and then special summon Chower from your deck and go into Unicore, or you could, as I said before, go into Formula Synchron very easily with this. So one for one is definitely one of my favorite cards in the deck. Um, Card Destruction, Lightning Vortex. Lightning Vortex is so much fun to use in this deck. Smashing Ground. I'm probably going to side in my Soul Takers that I have, because I do have them from the Zombie World Structure decks. 2 MST in a Heavy Storm. Book of Moon. Monster Reborn, and Dark Hole. And finally, I don't run that many traps at all, just a couple of small staples. I run Mirror Force, Starlight Road. You're going to be spamming like crazy in this deck, you know, special summon, special summon, special summon, special summon. So you're going to want to protect your field from Torrential Tributes and Dark Holes, so Starlight Road I think is definitely needed in this deck. I only run one Regeki Break, just because if you drop mid-game it's kind of sucky, but it does come in handy especially if you open up with it. And finally, I do run just 2 Torrential Tribute. I wish these could be bottomlesses, but I don't have an extra right now. That's the deck what I have for now, right now, guys. So if you have any constructive criticism or anything like that, please feel free to comment down below. I will see you guys later.